Hey, Will here, back with another Ava Technologies podcast. I do this every single day where I jump on with my co-founder Ben at Ava Technologies. We build Ava Mind, an AI therapeutic assistant, and we just talk about on this podcast the latest news in AI. We literally pull up articles that we found probably about 20 minutes before and also what we've heard about. So it's not necessarily a deep dive, but a surface opinion, having read the article and also working in this space. We are talking about a lot of things today, starting with Mark Zuckerberg shaking up AI within Meta again, making 4 divisions. That's quite interesting. We then spoke about the fact that Google is partnering with Kairos Power to build a power plant, a lot of the energy of which will go to powering Google's data centers. We also talked about an AI competition that Bill Gates is pioneering to fund Alzheimer's research and make breakthroughs within Alzheimer's. Very interesting. We then talk about how there was an article that came out talking about how generative AI does 95% nothing for companies. This is quite an interesting story and an interesting take. So we talk about our thoughts on this before jumping into the AI job market, which again is at an all-time low for computer science graduates, maybe one of the downsides to AI. Before finally wrapping it up very quickly, Ben had to go by talking about GPT-6 and the fact that that's in progress already, and how things like memory and personalization will play a key role in improving that. Don't forget to subscribe. I do this nearly every single day between making these kind of videos as well as shorts on what I'm doing day to day, and the podcast is coming right after this. Catch you the next one.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. We are going to dive straight into the news. We're covering all the latest AI news. We've got quite a few topics to run through, and we will. So we're going to be very strict with our timings today. As some of you who may be following, we try and keep each story to 5 minutes, and we keep it on the timer to keep things flowing. And we're just here to share what's happening in the latest news in AI and technology and all the rest of it. So these are the headlines that we've spotted today. We are going to give you our reactions to them as we fly through it. So let's go. Will, what's the first story of the day?
Add to stage. Mark Zuckerberg shakes up Meta's AI efforts again. He's doing a lot in this space, isn't he? At the moment, he seems to be making a lot of changes within Meta to push AI. He seems to be all in on it. He's basically splitting it up into 4 division groups now. One will focus on AI research, one will focus on superintelligence, another on product, and the last group will be on infrastructure. This is an interesting way to like reorganize things, and I guess each team is trying to solve a different problem within AI. We've spoken about this on the podcast before, about the key areas that need development within AI. And yeah, it's just interesting. Again, we're hearing Mark Zuckerberg on Meta doubling down all on AI. I don't know if you remember from a previous episode, we spoke about how he does tend to jump around a little bit between the latest technologies. And again, most critics will then say about that, and is this just another fad? And as soon as the next technology comes along, he'll go all in on that one instead. But no, I think, my personal opinion, I think this one is here to stay. I think that this technology is here to stay, and it's interesting to see how these massive companies are trying to win the race against each other. Because again, if you don't know, there is a big AI arms race. It's being dubbed really between American companies domestically. France is in the race, China is most certainly in the race, and they're all trying to get to this superintelligence first. So it's very interesting to see how people are achieving that.
It is, and this article just does mention about some of the other interesting aspects. One of which is they were talking about how the company said its capital expenditures could be as much as 72 billion this year, most of which is going towards building data centers and hiring AI researchers. So it is no small loose change that's going into this. That's for sure.
No, it's a phenomenally expensive pursuit. Again, most other like frontier labs and companies developing AI don't really publish their costs very often. Yeah, you can't really get a detailed breakdown. Meta is a big look inside that window, because they are quite openly speaking about how much they're acquiring talent for, and how much it's going to cost them to do this. And that's interesting. I don't know if that's intentional. I think it's probably more because of the astronomical costs they're actually bringing on. I mean, they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for AI researchers alone to try and get that on board. But yeah.
So Will, Yeah, I was going to say a couple of things that is also interesting in this article. They talk about, I mean, it sounds as though there's a lot of turmoil happening in the AI division. People are coming in, people are being questioned about what they've been doing. People are leaving, going to other competitors, other startups. And it's also, so there's obviously a lot of turmoil, a lot of shake-up, and the new leaders who are coming in are sort of putting their own stamp on it. It looks as though also, which is interesting, I don't know what your thought is or take is on this, is they're abandoning Meta's previous frontier model called Behemoth, is it? And they're starting from scratch with a new model. And they're also talking about not making it open source. They're talking about it being a closed model. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was gonna get to this, and that is an interesting decision. It's not necessarily a decision that I, on the surface, like. Again, an article will only reveal so much on what the reality is. But Meta were one of the first American, well, in fact, the first American company, or to really go into releasing these models open source and actually making something of it for the open source community. Up until then, you had OpenAI and Anthropic and Google releasing their models, all closed source, all proprietary, and Meta came in, and there was a lot of complaint and criticism about that. And now Meta is essentially doing the same after doing such a good job. I agree with the bit where they're starting again with a new infrastructure. I think that is required, but the fact that it won't be developed in public and it will just be proprietary, I think is a shame. I understand why, but it's a shame.
Interesting. Okay. As we are about 30 seconds out from our 5 minutes on this story, are we happy to move on? Because we have
unless you've got any other thoughts on that, I'm happy to move on.
No, just the usual sort of shenanigans that's happening and shake-ups and all the rest of it. So it's again, no, it's just interesting. It's interesting, but as we said the other day, I think, yeah, it's interesting. Zuckerberg is fully going gun ho for this, and he's just really trying to
a major.
You know what? It's a big gamble, because if it doesn't pay off, if he doesn't become one of the leaders, I mean, what could happen? Time has gone. We're going to move on to the next story.
I'm actually gonna boot one of these stories up a notch, because it leads directly into it. Obviously, that previous article was talking about the fact of the enormous costs involved in pushing these next generations of models for years to come, and this story plays directly into it. This is probably the first time. So I'll put this on the screen, and this is about Google basically going in with I'm not gonna try and pronounce the name. I just one of those words like Keros or something like that. Yeah, Keros power, and they are building a nuclear power plant. And it's going to put out enough energy to power 36,000 homes, but it's not going to power 36,000 homes. It's powering the data centers of Google, which is wild to think about. We've hit that place now where we need so much compute. We need dedicated power stations for them, for one company, for a private company. It's not even to go into the grid. It's to literally power, the data centers. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. I do believe, I might have been mistaken, I might have misread it. I did believe that some of it does go into the grid. I don't think they're going to be consuming all of it. So, it is really interesting though. The principles are really interesting, and I think it's a clear strategic sort of decision that they're sort of making and investing with. They know that these AI data centers are going to need an incredible amount of energy, not just today, but what's it going to be like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? So I think it is absolutely fascinating. I mean, they're like small modular reactors, aren't they? And I think it is wild to think these technology companies are effectively obviously teaming up with the experts in nuclear power to build these, I think they're called SMRs, small modular reactors.
So you are right. This is going into the grid, but with Google as a key stakeholder, this is going to be a lot of that power is going to be dedicated towards powering the data centers of Google.
Yeah, and I guess the question is why? Why are they doing this? And I think it's pretty, a number of things, isn't it? It's they want to, I guess, have that security that of making sure that they can get the energy that they need and they require, not just now but in 20 years time. I guess they want to stabilize energy, their energy costs. It's obviously good PR as well, isn't it? And I believe they can offset their carbon footprint or get carbon credits or something like that. So there's obviously a cost benefit as well. Particularly as obviously the energy usage goes up and up and up and up.
I think this is what people don't consider is actually, if you think about Google, how many users, like sheer number of users on the globe that they serve. I mean, it's in the billions and billions, multi-billion. And when you think there's 7 billion people on this planet, a lot of the time, more than half of the world is using, between Facebook, Meta, these big companies, more than half the world are connected to these services. And that's another insane thought. And I think this is Google looking ahead. I think it's probably, again, like out of necessity to either sustain the growth that they have now or in preparation for what they think it will be. I think it's out of necessity more than anything.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, if they're not in control of the energy, their whole business model is potentially, vulnerable. So
now, one final thought before we go to the next story is also, should this be allowed? I mean, you have a big company like Google, private company, that is now having as a stakeholder in the nation's energy as well. I know they're like things like Kairos Power are going to be regulated and are private companies as well. But should you be letting more and more of these key stakeholders into something as crucial as energy for people? And, when they're, I mean, this is a debate that's a very old debate anyway.
Absolutely. And again, I guess it's the question is how much influence do they have? I mean, ultimately. Yeah. So, but having said that, if they're underwriting it and they're investing in it, and it can serve, help serve a country, drive its energy costs down, then it's an interesting mix of private enterprise and state sort of creating these power plants. But yeah, interesting. Time has gone, mate. We're gonna have to move on.
Let's move on to the next one. Let me put it on my screen. Still sticking in AI and a little bit touching on what we talked about yesterday. This is a field that particularly interests me. Not that I'll pretend to know about much of it within this space particularly, but it does interest me. And this is Bill Gates backs an AI competition to offer $1 million to accelerate Alzheimer's research. And I think this is great. I love this because as I mentioned yesterday, when you and I went to that event and we were on stage being asked questions and we were asked where we think AI is going and what we think the most exciting field is. I think the medical research field is one of those really incredible. It might be more boring to people and not as sci-fi, but I think it's one where it will have massive benefits. Here is another one, Alzheimer's research, something that we don't really have any sort of cure for. And, if AI can accelerate the development of things like cures and prevention and, all of it, then that's just amazing.
And I think this article basically just talks about how Bill Gates is putting up a price, isn't he? Like, is it $1 million or something like that? And just to, the winner who builds an AI tool that becomes sort of, available for, researchers worldwide to tackle Alzheimer's. So I think it's interesting, isn't it? There are these sort of incentives and competitions and opportunities, aren't there, for that you see sort of popping up, and it's a way to, I guess, incentivize the marketplace to go and build these incredible sort of solutions or solve these big problems that the world faces. And here's a big prize to do it. And Bill Gates gets his criticism for lots of different things, but again, it's I don't know if it's his own money that he's actually putting up, but either way, it's hopefully, again, it's another advancement in this sort of field, and again, it's a sign of more things to come, and I think these things will just accelerate. So it's interesting, very interesting, and positive. I guess the question is, when are we going to see results, and how long is it going to take?
Yeah, I think a key distinction with this, with where AI is now, and this is important to note, is that we're still waiting on an AI to actually make a real breakthrough, as in find some knowledge that we didn't know about already. Where AI in the medical field is advancing at the moment is that its ability to sift through massive amounts of data and also spot patterns, to a very fine degree. And this is exactly what this AI competition is about. Really, it's not about discovering new knowledge. It's about sifting through vast amount of data to do with Alzheimer's and hoping to spot something that other researchers have not been able to, simply because there is just such a vast amount of data that you can't see every pattern. This has happened time and time again when you're coming up with new proteins. Again, it's not about inventing a new protein, it's about spotting patterns in data that we already have and finding the solution that way. I think that it will be, as a lot of these AI companies, like Sam Altman says, that when we'll know we've completed our mission when AI comes through and actually discovers something that we don't already know. So that's what we're waiting for, and I'm really excited for that point.
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, I'm just scanning through the article. This is the first time I've read it, and just given our reaction as we do it for you guys in the audience. Interesting. Gates actually, this stems really from Bill Gates's own experience with his father dying of Alzheimer's. So again, it's obviously a personal thing for him, very much so. And equally, it's interesting to see like Jeff Bezos' mother died battling dementia as well. So yeah, it's obviously a very pertinent thing that sort of has a direct meaning to them. So fair play.
Yeah, 100%. Love it.
So, well, I think we pretty much covered that. Is there anything else do you want to add? I know we're a little bit ahead of time here.
No, I think this is good.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll move on to the next story.
This is one you sent me, and I haven't been able to give it a detailed read. So I will read the headline, and then maybe you take it away if you've read more than I have. Else, we can have a quick squiz whilst we're on the stream here. And it's that Gen AI, fear of missing out, has spurred business to light nearly $40 billion on fire. And now I know that this article particularly is referencing the fact that it doesn't do anything for 95% of companies. Now, do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? I think this is more just a general talking point, because I think a lot of companies to be honest, a lot of companies aren't doing much. I think I read something the other day, something like a third of it might be European businesses haven't even got an AI policy. So it says to me, that's the timer for the previous story. So I think there's an unbelievable amount of businesses who don't have policies. I think there's an unbelievable amount of businesses who don't really know how to integrate AI, other than we'll just let our employees use ChatGPT and somebody else uses Gemini, and there's a lot of businesses I think that haven't actually gone through their sort of structure and thought about how can we actually implement it meaningfully into their businesses. And I think this is sort of what this sort of demonstrates at the moment. A lot of the, I guess, solutions are plug and play, subscribe to our service, subscribe to our SaaS model. We'll use this AI tool for XYZ reason, and I think businesses are struggling to figure out how can we actually properly implement it into our business and operations. And I don't think it's that obvious for a huge number, and this all, I guess, demonstrates it. So I think and it's interesting because you've almost got to go back to the starting point of mapping out your business and operations, and think about what actually do we do, and how can we maybe find a task, and how can AI possibly help improve that, make it faster, simplify the process, etc. And I think a lot of businesses haven't gone through that due diligence and that process to start, because then once you figure that out, you then need to build a bespoke solution, I think, for it, because every business is unique. and the way that they work will be unique. There'll be overlaps, whether it's compliance and things like that. And also, where does that human sort of element come into it, just to have that oversight? So, we've talked about how, we're not just building Ava Mind, which is an AI therapeutic system. We've talked about how we're going to be implementing AI into our operations to make, for example, our marketing outreach more efficient, and to do certain things there. So and we've got some interesting things that we're exploring, which are frontier stuff. So I don't know if you want to sort of just touch on some of the thoughts that we're having.
I think first of all, this title is a bit clickbait in terms of generative AI does nothing for 95% of companies. I think that is not the case. As I said, I think you've hit the nail on the head that this is such a frontier technology. Things are changing, platforms are launching all of the time, and people and companies don't necessarily know how to integrate it correctly. And that's going to be an evolving thing for people. I think there's a lot of money being spent, and I don't think companies necessarily know where to spend it. I mean, yeah, in-house, you've got to keep your ear to the ground and listen for things as they come out, and also develop those solutions yourself when we're thinking about how can we improve our own product, how can we bring AI into that, and also how can we streamline our business operations. It's about sitting down and mapping, as you said, mapping out the processes that you use within a company, and not necessarily just introducing AI everywhere, but where it's inefficient. Within marketing, we've been able to achieve a lot more by doing that, by going down that process and adding, more tooling to what you do anyway, just by being a little bit more efficient with thinking about where autonomy could improve it. Same with engineering. It's where are the inefficiencies? What could we do and bring on to make our processes better? And as you said, I think it's a proper strategy. It's something that takes a lot of time.
And also, we've talked about before, haven't we? With is it? You have to forgive me if I've got the terminology wrong, but is it NPCs or something?
Tell me you're in marketing without telling me you're in marketing. MCPs, yes. MCPs, model context.
MCPs, not NPCs.
It's essentially a technology that allows you to connect up.
Yeah, because again, talking about sort of how an organization can best implement AI, a lot of the buzz is around agents. And again, you got to go onto this website and do that, and go to another website and do something else, or have these agents. But with the MCPs, it's all about integrating it into your natural workflow. And so I don't know. Again, do you want to sort of talk about?
Yeah. So that's essentially like, if you're familiar with the term API, a lot more people are familiar with the term API because that's been around a long time. But that's a way for your own software and your own solutions to connect and talk with another third party's software and solutions. And MCPs are the same, but for models to be able to interact with third party services. So for example, you could have a model and you could say, can you send this email to all of my contacts on MailChimp with this tag? And then you'd have a MailChimp MCP that would be able to then action that. So that's sort of how that would work. And this is, again, such a new thing. MCPs were brought out by Anthropic, and they were released as like a protocol they were using, and it's been adopted by virtually everyone now. And I do think this is where it's really powerful, but it again requires you to sit down and look for what could be improved with autonomy in your business, or what could be improved with natural language even. And then the MCP might not even exist yet, but then, as you said, you can build bespoke solutions to connect it up, because again, it's an open standard in which you can build upon. So I think that's got a lot of potential to create agents. It's a field within AI called unhobbling, which is where you can have the most intelligent person in the world, most intelligent person in the room, but if they don't have any tools, they're going to be hobbled. That's where the word comes from. And this whole practice is about giving tools to the AI to make it better at its job. And again, an MCP, or the ability to talk to MCPs and give it more connectivity to these services, is a way to really boost intelligence. To, I think, wrap back around to this article, I do think it's clickbait. I think we'll talk about it, some of the negative side effects of how it is actually not money wasted within companies, in an article to come in a second. But I think there's a huge amount of businesses that are also doing it right. I think the businesses that aren't need to go back to the drawing board and have proper strategy meetings about it.
Definitely. I think I know we sort of talking about this story a little bit longer than possibly we should be, but I think it's a really interesting. I think the way AI is going to be utilized is going to be a very natural way where you're literally working on your computer and you might have an interface that you use, but ultimately that will then you don't then need to jump to other websites or the rest of it, or go to your email or do this or do that. You'll just set a task, and the MCPs will write the context that you need. If it's an email, say you're in financial services, outreach email to all your contacts. Another MCP will do a follow-up. Another MCP might do some research on financial matters that they can sort of bespoke for those different individuals. They could then react. You get the gist that basically it's an all-consuming solution that is just organic, and it's very tailored to the business and entity that you're in. And I think that's going to be, it's not going to be fragmented, is what I'm trying to get at. It's going to be very much tailored to the organization. So I think that's going to be the exciting frontier that we'll see when businesses really start utilizing AI. It's their part of their business flow, and it just speeds them up and makes everything much more personal, relevant, faster, quicker to their clients, to themselves, and all the rest of it. So interesting, mate. Let's move on to the next story.
Yeah, I'm going to bump one article again. I'm going to do this one next because it directly leads on from what we were just speaking about. It's very good, and this is probably a counter to this. When we see articles like this, is there's a lot of people that think that AI is not being integrated into business as well, but there's also a lot of headlines that would say otherwise, and this is true. This is talking about the fact that computer science graduates are facing the worst job market in decades, and this is basically, this article is attributing that directly to sort of AI development and the fact that it's not needed as much. And I'll be honest with you, this is something that we feel internally as well. I don't think that we feel the need to expand the team or have more resources as much as we did maybe go back a year ago. I feel that we can accomplish far more with the people that we have with the AI tooling than we can by adding more resources necessarily. It will still obviously scale out, and we'll need more people eventually because there'll be a limit to what the AI can do and what you can do if you want to achieve more. But there's less of a need to go and straight bring on more people because the tools we have is absolutely phenomenal. And also, you take away with your thoughts on this as well. I'll keep talking after you've spoken. But obviously, I don't want to make light of this situation. This is one of the major downsides to AI is the job market. It's a massive detriment to a lot of people, but not many people have a solution. It's just the case at the moment. We're just seeing it. Mass layoffs, employment rates are down, and no one really has a solution to what to do, including me. So maybe take it away with your thoughts from here.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's really, never before have we lived in a world where the unknown is properly unknown. The future is unknown. So we usually live in a world where the future is unknown, but it's pretty much, you get an idea of where the trajectory is going and what, if you follow a particular path, where the likely outcomes, will be. Obviously, there are always curveballs that come with life. That's just the nature of it. But I think for the first time ever, we genuinely almost can't even imagine what the future will look like. And I think that's slightly mind-bending, and I think as if anyone who's sort of wanting to study computer science or get into IT, software development, it's quite probably unsettling. So it's a really, really tricky one. I think ultimately it's going to have to, if somebody wants to get into this field, it's going to have, it's going to have to be a passion. It's going to have to be somebody who absolutely loves it. And I think all you can do is just specialize in a really niche areas. Having said that, I heard, was it the head of Google or the ex-head of Google? He was talking about there's almost no point spending 4 years doing a doctorate in AI, because by the time you come out of it, the space has moved so fast that it's, things have moved on. And
on that point, that's very true. And we encounter it all the time. We do a lot of work within the education sector, and we work quite closely with educational institutes. And that is so true. Whenever we get presented with people that are studying within computer science or IT or software engineering, is their knowledge. They're learning things at 3 years out of the day, and AI is moving even faster. Again, this is what's quite interesting here. Is this article is actually a really interesting read, and this is a really interesting read, and it's headlines like this, like universities keep graduating students for jobs that don't exist. And I think this is true. It's not just the job market and the companies that are making this a problem. It's also the institutions that are actually pumping out and giving these degrees to people. Is that they need to catch up as well and offer something that is more suitable for the job market that we're heading into, because they're signing people up for degrees for jobs that genuinely don't exist.
It's very, very, it's a challenging sort of future. Right, I'm gonna have to skid out in a minute, mate. Can we wrap up and go to we've got one last story to cover?
Yes, one more story, but we can call it a wrap if you want to.
That's okay, mate. I'm getting hounded. That's okay. I'm getting hounded. I'm getting wanted. I'm a wanted man.
We'll quickly talk about this. We'll make it a 3-minute sprint. This is one I think that you particularly enjoy talking about anyway, and this is how we can personalize and improve AI and make it better for individuals. At the moment, obviously, we have AI that is very generic across the board. Everyone has a similar experience, but now we're hitting a phase where we can make AIs feel more intelligent and be more intelligent because they have things like memory. They are personalized to you and your experiences. And I think that's an incredible thing, and something I'm really looking forward to is talking to Ben's chat GPT or talking to Ben's Ava is going to be very different to talking to Will's Ava.
100%, and we're talking about that is that personalization is going to be the future, and something we want to build into our product. Just have that sort of ability to go, today, I do need to speak to my AI therapeutic assistant Ava this morning because I've had a bit of a tough night. But later on during that same day, I might be going, I feel great.
Hey, Will here, jumping in with a bit of an overdub. Ben's internet really started to cut out here, so I won't subject you to the audio quality that ensues. Instead, I will wrap up his point as best as I can so that you can hear his words that he was saying. He was basically following along the point that AI personalization is going to become massively important in the future. Just because you need an AI therapist in the morning, you might feel better in the afternoon, and now actually you need somebody to mentor you or provide you with some workout instructions or do some kind of guided meditation. I think personalization is going to be a key role to make these AIs also seem more intelligent. Even if it's surface level, it will connect better with us humans. That is the essence to what Ben was talking about before his audio started to go wrong and his internet went wrong and he had to also leave anyway because he's on holiday, very kindly still doing the podcast despite being on holiday. Anyway, that's what he was saying. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.